Imagine for a second a hacker, like someone trying to breach a highly secure, multi-million-dollar organization, right?
Yeah, totally.
They want access to sensitive financial records, medical histories, personally identifiable information, all of it. And they don't typically wage this, like, brute force cyber war against the dedicated IT department.
No, because that's usually way too difficult.
Right. Instead, they send a perfectly crafted, totally innocent-looking email to the person sitting at the front desk. They target the secretary.
Which is exactly the weak point.
Exactly. So today, for this deep dive, we are unpacking why the front desk of your local school is actually a high-stakes data fortress, and why the people running it are really the unsung heroes of the entire education system.
Yeah, it is a complete inversion of how we normally perceive schools, I think. Because we tend to focus entirely on the academics, right? But the operational reality behind those academics, that's where the actual survival of the institution is decided.
Totally. Because when you think about education, or when you picture a school in your mind's eye, it is almost always like watching a theatrical play.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. You sit in the audience, lights go down, and you focus entirely on the actors on the stage. And in this case, those actors are the teachers at the front of the classroom and the students sitting at their desks.
Right, you're looking at the curriculum, the test scores.
Exactly, the daily academic drama. But today, we are taking you backstage. We've got this stack of sources, service materials, a really interesting historical timeline, and a comprehensive company overview. And they all detail the work of an independent educational consulting firm called the Lofton Group, LLC.
Which basically means we are shifting our focus away from the pedagogy. We are looking directly at the stage crew. We're talking about the producers, the lighting technicians, the riggers, the people who make sure that educational play can even, happen in the first place.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is to understand how strategic consulting, operational readiness, and workforce development are the actual concrete foundations of a successful school.
Yeah, they really are the foundation.
So to understand how these complex school systems are built, we first need to look at the architect, or maybe the chief mechanic who designed them. The sources point us directly to the founder and school operations strategist of the Lofton Group, Lofton.
Right.
We're moving from this broad concept of, like, school operations to the very specific human experience that shapes this entire firm's DNA.
And the documentation outlines a pretty massive footprint here. We are talking about over 15 years of experience in school operations. This stretches way back to 2011.
Wow, so a long time.
Yeah, a really long time in this specific space. And in that time, the Lofton Group has played a key role in the founding and operational readiness of something like 15 different schools across a geographically diverse area, like Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee.
And they aren't just copy-pasting a single model, right?
No, not at all. They work across a really diverse spectrum of educational philosophies. So that includes charter schools, classical schools, and traditional public school systems, too.
But the timeline provided in the sources is what really, breaks the molds for me. It is outlined as a legacy of service, and it maps out Lofton's personal career trajectory. In 2008, she started as a school secretary.
Yeah, which is just huge context.
Let that sink in for you listening for a moment.
Okay.
2008, school secretary. Then we jump to 2014, where she is leading monthly professional development and heading up the first cohort of new office manager training.
Moving right up the ladder.
Fast. By 2015, she is hitting the road to get a new location started. She's presenting at Kent State University and launching something called the 10 Keys Rollout, which sounds like a major codification of her operational strategies.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a formalized system, and the momentum just continues to build rapidly from there. By 2016, she is canvassing for students and has moved into the role of director of data. And then by 2017, she is hosting even broader professional development seminars.
Okay, I want to push back on our traditional idea of what a consultant actually is, because this trajectory challenges it entirely.
How so?
Well, usually when you picture an operational consultant, you picture someone with a shiny corporate MBA, right? They come in with a briefcase, a whiteboard, maybe a bunch of theoretical frameworks.
A lot of buzzwords.
Exactly. They look at a school from a very sterile, top-down perspective. But doesn't starting at the front desk, answering the actual phones, and dealing with the chaos of a school morning give a fundamentally different, almost boots-on-the-ground architecture to the systems this firm builds.
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is how that specific progression mechanically alters the entire consulting approach. I mean, think about what a school secretary actually
Right,
does.
it's a lot.
It's everything. Because she had to manually enroll students in 2008 or, deal with a frantic parent while trying to input attendance, she understands exactly why data entry errors happen at the front desk.
Because there's a kid throwing up in the lobby while the phone is ringing.
Exactly. She knows the friction points intimately. So when she eventually becomes a director of data in 2016 and designs a compliance system for an entire network of schools, she isn't designing it for a perfectly quiet, vacuum-sealed office.
Right. She is building fail-safes into the software and the protocols to catch human errors before they multiply. She is building a system that balances human panic with spreadsheet logic.
That's a perfect way to say it. A consultant who has never tracked a truant student or managed a disrupted bus schedule simply cannot anticipate those friction points. The Lofton Group can support a school from concept to classroom because their operational blueprints are forged in the reality of a rainy Tuesday morning when 3 buses are late and the internet is down.
Wow, yeah.
They know how things actually work, not just how they should work on paper.
And that ground-level reality is the perfect transition to the actual services they provide. When you look at their service materials, they essentially divide their focus into the 2 most massive, critical hurdles for any educational institution.
Right, which are?
Well, opening the physical doors, and then staying legally compliant with the state so those doors aren't forced shut.
Right, 2 very different but equally terrifying mountains to climb. Opening a school is a complete logistical labyrinth. Their school operations strategy focuses really heavily on startup planning, facility coordination, and opening day preparation.
Getting the building actually ready.
Yeah, but the centerpiece of all this is the implementation of student information systems, commonly known as an SIS.
Okay, let's break down what an SIS actually is, because it sounds like just a digital Rolodex, but it is so much more than that.
Oh, way more.
It is the central hub tracking attendance, grades, disciplinary records, medical needs, parent communications, literally everything. The sources note that the Lofton Group handles everything from selecting the right software vendor to implementing it, optimizing the data flow, and actually training the staff on how to not break it.
Yeah, the student information system is the engine of the school. But the fuel running through that engine brings us to their next major division, which is the compliant data solution.
Right. This is the heavy, highly technical, heavily regulated side of schooling that the general public is almost entirely blind to. Here's where it gets really interesting, for me at least, because the sources throw out these dense, highly technical acronyms. We are talking about EMUS reporting, error resolution, funding reviews, state compliance, audit readiness, and special education reporting.
It's a lot of jargon.
It is, and there is also a specific mention of something called audits. And to make sense of this, the best analogy I can think of is the tax code.
Okay, I like that.
Managing a school's state compliance data sounds a lot like trying to flawlessly file complex tax returns for hundreds, maybe thousands of dependents simultaneously.
Yeah.
Oh, and the IRS keeps changing the rules of the tax code while you are hitting the submit button.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the tax analogy works beautifully because it highlights the financial consequences. Let's define those acronyms to show how those consequences play out in real life.
Well, please do.
So EMIS stands for the Education Management Information System. You can think of it as the central nervous system for state funding. It is the massive database where schools report their numbers to the state government.
Okay, so that's the main hub.
Right. And AUDEX refers to the Ohio District Data Exchange, which is the specific platform where that data is verified, exchanged, and cross-checked for errors between districts and the state.
So if EMIS is the tax return, AUDEX is the audit software checking your math before the government writes you a refund check.
That is a great way to look at it. And the stakes for getting that math right are completely existential. Let's break that down into a practical, everyday scenario.
Okay.
Suppose a front desk worker incorrectly inputs the paperwork for a student who requires specialized state-funded special education services, like, say, intensive speech therapy or behavioral support.
Which is something that is incredibly vital to that child's development.
Very vital, and frankly, very extensive to provide. When that data goes into the system, if the coding is wrong, even just a slight typo, the AUDEX platform will flag it as an error.
Right.
Now, if the school doesn't have a rigorous error resolution protocol, if they just ignore the flag or don't know what it means, the state simply assumes that student is a general education student.
Wait, they just assume?
Yep. And overnight, the school loses the $5,000 to $10,000 allocated for that specific child's therapy.
Oh my God.
Multiply that single data entry mistake by 50 kids, and suddenly the school has a $500,000 hole in their budget. They literally cannot make payroll.
Wow. That completely changes the context. It's not just a matter of keeping neat files or doing busy work for bureaucrats. It's literal survival.
Exactly.
If you don't submit the data correctly, the state does not give you the money to educate the child in front of you.
That is why the sources place such a heavy emphasis on data quality reviews and audit readiness. Data compliance is the lifeblood of a school's financial health. If the EMEIS reporting breaks down, the school goes bankrupt or gets its charter revoked.
They shut down.
It does not matter if you have the most brilliant teachers in the state delivering award-winning curriculum. If the data machinery fails, the doors close.
Okay, so that establishes the massive, honestly crushing burden of these systems. You have the logistical nightmare of startup operations, and you have the endless high-stakes compliance reporting to the state.
Yep.
Which naturally leads us to the most logical next question.
Yeah.
Who on earth is managing all of this? I mean, you can have the most beautifully optimized student information system in the world and flawless EMAS protocols, but they are entirely useless without highly trained professionals actually sitting at the keyboard.
Absolutely. Systems are only as robust as the human beings operating them. A school can buy the most expensive software available, but if the staff doesn't understand the underlying logic of the compliance regulations, the software will just process bad data faster.
Faster mistakes.
Exactly.
And this brings us to what I think is the most unique and surprising division outlined in the sources. It's called Office Manager University, or OMU. The Lofton Group realized you can't just build the systems, you have to actually train the workforce that runs them.
Right. They identified a massive gap in professional development. Because think about it, we spend millions training teachers on curriculum, but the people handling the compliance data are often left to just figure it out on the fly.
Trial by fire.
Exactly.
Well, the sources describe OMU as a 100% online, self-paced, professional development platform that is designed specifically and exclusively for school office professionals.
Which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have built these very targeted, specific programs. There's the first 30 days of the school office program, the first-year success system, something called Master Track, and a 12-month train from your desk initiative.
Right.
And to me, this suggests that the learning curve in a school office is incredibly steep. It requires continuous, structured onboarding, not just a 2-hour orientation where someone points to the copy machine and wishes you luck.
Yeah, the modular, ongoing nature of those programs is key. The first 30 days likely deals with immediate survival, navigating the emotional whiplash of the environment while trying to maintain basic data integrity.
Just keeping your head above water.
Right. But as you move into the Master Track or the 12-month programs, you are shifting from survival to operational mastery.
And the curriculum they're teaching is what completely blew my mind. Sure, you have the traditional schools you would expect to see for a front office role. Things like customer service, teamwork, front office procedures, managing enrollment, basic communication.
Right, the standard stuff.
But right alongside those, the sources list highly modern organizational growth topics. You're talking about leadership development and administrative coaching. And then 2 topics that honestly stopped me in my tracks: AI for school offices and cybersecurity awareness.
Integrating artificial intelligence and cybersecurity into training for school secretaries represents a massive paradigm shift in how we view educational administration.
I was trying to find an analogy for this, and the cliche is usually to call an office manager an air traffic controller.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But that doesn't really capture the mechanics of what they are doing with the data. A modern school office manager is more like a triage nurse in an emergency room, combined with a corporate compliance auditor.
Oh, that's spot on.
Right. They have to stop the immediate bleeding, whether that is a sick kid, an angry parent, or a missing teacher, while simultaneously ensuring every single piece of data they enter passes strict state regulations so the hospital actually gets paid.
This raises an important question about how the fundamental role of the administrative professional has drastically evolved over the last decade. Historically, the stereotype of the school secretary was largely clerical, and hospitality-focused.
Give out Band-Aids, call mom.
Right. They were expected to be welcoming, answer the phones, hand out ice packs. But when you are actively training school office staff in cybersecurity and generative AI, you are acknowledging a brand new reality.
And that reality loops right back to the hacker scenario we started with. They are the IT gatekeepers now.
Exactly. The front desk is the front line. It is the front line of data protection, of privacy compliance, and of operational efficiency. Hackers know that school districts hold massive amounts of valuable data, social security numbers, medical records, financial information,
Everything.
everything. They also know that school offices are chaotic environments where people are rushing. So they send a phishing email with a fake invoice to the front desk, just hoping the office manager is too distracted by, a fire drill to notice the malicious link.
And if the person answering the phones clicks that link, the entire student information system we just talked about is compromised. The whole fortress falls because of single human error at the front gate.
Yes. Furthermore, integrating AI training shows a push for incredible efficiency. An office manager might be taught how to use AI to quickly draft routine community communications or translate documents for non-English speaking parents. That saves hours of time.
Huge time saver.
But they also need the cybersecurity training to know they can never, ever input sensitive student data into a public language model.
Right, you can't just copy-paste an IEP into an AI chatbot.
Exactly. It's treating the administrative staff with the same level of professional rigor that we usually reserve for corporate executives or the teaching staff.
Which makes sense. You wouldn't put a teacher in a classroom without extensive training on pedagogy, so why would you put an office manager in charge of the school's vital data and cybersecurity without the same level of investment?
You wouldn't.
The Lofton Group's focus on OMU proves that you cannot separate the operational strategy from the people executing it.
It validates their role as essential operational leaders within the building. The strategy, the data compliance, and the human workforce are an interconnected ecosystem. You can't have one without the other two.
So what does this all mean? When we take a step back and look at the whole picture provided by these sources, we can synthesize a pretty clear blueprint. The core takeaway from diving into the Lofton Group is that successful, enduring schools are built on three distinct pillars.
Yay, let's hear them.
First, you have strategic startup operations. Getting the facility ready, planning the logistics, and setting up the foundational student information systems.
The mechanical framework.
Exactly. Second, you have rigorous data compliance, managing the EMS reporting, utilizing audits for error resolutions, and maintaining the audit readiness that ensures the funding actually flows from the state to the school.
The financial lifeblood.
And third, you need a highly trained, modernized administrative workforce to run it all. The triage nurses and compliance auditors at the front desk who are trained in everything from customer service to advanced cybersecurity. The Lofton Group's comprehensive solutions map perfectly onto these absolute necessities.
They are providing the essential backstage infrastructure so the front stage performance can happen without interruption.
And for you listening, whether you are launching a new project of your own, whether you are managing a complex team in a totally different industry, or if you are just insanely curious about how the hidden gears of education actually turn, the lesson here is entirely universal.
It really applies everywhere.
Strong systems and well-trained behind-the-scenes professionals are exactly what allow the front-facing work of any organization to actually shine. Without the stage crew, there is no play.
Which leaves us with a fascinating dynamic to consider moving forward. We spend so much of our public discourse debating curriculum choices, standardized testing methods, and teacher performance evaluations.
Right. Constant.
But if a school's very survival, its funding, its legal compliance, its defense against cyber threats, and its daily functionality relies so heavily on the quiet, operational excellence of its administrative professionals, how much of a student's actual academic success, like their test scores or their graduation rates, is secretly dictated by the efficiency of the front office they barely even notice?
Oh, wow.
Could a well-run front desk be just as critical to a child's education as the curriculum itself?
That completely changes how you look at the school building.
Yeah.
The next time the curtain goes up on that educational play, you'll know exactly who is working in the dark to keep the lights on and why their job is so critical to the performance.